A sport where top speeds can reach 233 miles an hour, where a single mistake could cost you your life, and where victory comes with a sweet chance to dip into $1 billion prize pool. This is Formula One.
Yeah, she wanna pipe me. Bitch, I'm baby. Yeah, this shit be poppin' like it's from the 80s. I'm a prima donna. Smoke marijuana. I'm out in Tijuana, hot boy like a sauna. We sip tequila. I bought a Sheba. It's a nice dog. Damn, your girl's a cougar, she a cheetah. She feisty, she a Pisces.
Formula One, the world's most prestigious motor racing competition, which began in 1950 and has only grown exponentially in popularity ever since. Every year, Formula One hosts 21 of some of the biggest races in the world, spanning across 21 countries and across 4 continents. And today we will be covering the Formula One Iceberg Explained. And as I'm sure most of you know already, but an iceberg starts out with well-known topics that every racing fan would know, and near the bottom is some of the more disturbing and weird Formula One facts and info. And also, don't worry if you're not a huge racing fan, because before this video, I wasn't a huge fan of it, to be honest, but I learned a lot while researching and recording this video and scripting, and now I'm a huge fan. So if you want to learn something new, or get into racing, or just want to have something to watch, make sure you stick around and watch to the end. And also, before we get into the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It helps out the channel a ton, and it'd be awesome for you to join the community, so please subscribe. And alright, anyways, enough yapping. Let's get into the Formula One Iceberg Explained. Alright, let's just get into Tier 1, Daddy's Cash. In Formula One, a sport where talent, grit, and split-second decisions reign supreme, there's one other critical factor that can steer your career: money. And when your dad's got more of it than Scrooge McDuck, it can open some pretty important doors. In motorsports, you will sometimes hear the term pay driver. A pay driver is a driver that instead of being paid to drive the car, the driver itself will pay the team. This is a unique thing in motorsports because the sport is so damn expensive. And more importantly, there are a finite number of spots in every F1 junior division. It is estimated that for a driver to reach the pinnacle of motorsports, it will cost around $5 to $6 million a year. So where does our friend Lance Stroll factor into this? Well, his father owns the Aston Martin F1 team, the team he drives for. Don't be mistaken, he's not bad all the time. His pole position at the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix proved that there is some talent in Lance Stroll. There have been much worse drivers in Formula One. The controversy around him is that he's mediocre, and with so much talent waiting outside the F1 grid, it has become frustrating for the fans that he is holding a spot hostage, and that no matter how bad his performances are, he will not be dropped from the team. The pressure is mounting on Lance Stroll and Aston Martin, with the team investing over $100 million in a new factory and the team's other driver, the two-time world champion Fernando Alonso, constantly outperforming Stroll. So how much longer can Lance rely on his daddy's cash to keep the spot? Indianapolis 2005. Formula One has been trying to gain a foothold in the US market for a few decades now. In recent years, it has gained a lot of ground with the addition of 2 new US tracks and a hit TV show on Netflix, but it's worth remembering that this is not the first time F1 has tried to court US audiences. First in the 80s with the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, which was an obvious money grab, the track being a glorified parking lot with the most boring layout you will ever see. More notable is the second time F1 made a big push in North America, in the early 2000s. A push that came crashing down in 2005 with the United States Grand Prix, the worst farce of a race in modern Formula racing. One thing to keep in mind is that at this time, F1 had more than one tire manufacturer. In 2005, there were 2 competing manufacturers, Michelin and Bridgestone. Okay, so where's the problem? The problem started when 2 of the cars that ran Michelin tires had crashed during practice because of weird tire blowouts. After an investigation by Michelin, they realized that their tires were not suitable for the track, and this was quite a bit of a problem when you consider that out of the 20 cars, 14 used Michelin tires. A few solutions had been proposed, for example, adding a chicane to the circuit to limit speed. Ultimately, no compromise had been set by the time of the race, so the Michelin cars decided to not compete due to safety concerns. And so come the race start, the 6 Bridgestone cars lined up for the start with the 100,000 fans that paid to see the race booing relentlessly. There's not much to talk about the race itself because it was obviously the most boring race in existence, with Michael Schumacher winning in the end. Also, in an act of complete stupidity, the FIA sued the 7 Michelin teams at the World Motorsport Council because they, quote, failed to ensure availability of suitable tires for the race. Obviously, the teams were found not guilty. The Raidillon actually. What started as people correcting an honest mistake quickly turned into a meme. You see, there was this turn called Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, and one of its most iconic turns is an uphill right-hand turn. It is called the Raidillon. But people confuse it with the Eau Rouge, which is the small turn before the Raidillon. The meme gained steam when F1 commentator David Croft brought the meme to the official F1 broadcast soon after the official F1 YouTube channel weighed in on the fun, making a video explaining the difference between the two corners. DAS. So we'll be getting into the technical side of F1, so hold on. At the start of the 2020 F1 season, Mercedes debuted a new steering system called Dual Axis Steering, or for short, DAS. After a tweet by the team explaining the new system, the community went into a bit of a panic. Why? Because it was something new that the other teams didn't have. And given that Mercedes won the last 6 championships, people took this as a sign that the upcoming season will be another Mercedes blowout. And it was. Mercedes won 11 out of the 16 races. Lewis Hamilton became a 7-time world champion, tying Michael Schumacher's record. So how did DAS work? To put it simply, the system gave the driver the option to push or pull the steering wheel, causing the angle of the tires to change. Why would you want that? Because on a straight line, you would prefer the tires to be parallel. But when taking a corner, a small angle would be beneficial to give stability and to allow more speed into said corner. Was DAS the major innovation that it was heralded to be? Maybe, but it is hard to tell because this point in time Mercedes had a better car anyways regardless of DAS, so it is hard to tell exactly how much DAS impacted the performance. The system was outlawed by the FIA for the 2021 season and beyond, a fact that was obvious for anyone watching at the time. Spinala is a slang term used by the Formula One community to describe the act of a car and driver spinning out during a race. The word stems from the Italian spinare, which loosely translates to spin it and bid it, but it can also be used to describe other types of fails during a race. The use of this term appeared online as early as September 10th, 2019, when Redditor AlphaMaxNova1 posted a video using the term to the r/Formula Dank subreddit, the leading community in the meme world of F1. AlphaMaxNova1 used the term when portraying a parody conversation between Formula One drivers and their teams shortly before footage shows one of them spinning out and crashing. This post also contains the spelling of Spinala with a B emoji, Spinala, which is one of its most common forms of reference. Since then, the term has been used in the F1 meme community sporadically. The word gained a new life by being associated with Ferrari and their weird fails and head-scratching decisions. 30 years ago. The king of F1 memes. Just saying the words 30 years ago or gentlemen, a short view back to the past will bring a smile to the face of any F1 fan. So at one point, F1 used to have these driver press conferences with anywhere between 4 to 6 drivers. One of these conferences took place before the 2014 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and one of the questions holds the record for the longest press conference question ever at 1 minute and 7 seconds. You may think it doesn't sound so bad. The combination of speech cadence, accent, and nonsensical question combined with the faces of the drivers make this moment legendary. Words cannot describe the awkwardness of this moment, so here's the video in full. Ericsson hit us. Ah yes, the time when Marcus Ericsson used the force to take one of his competitors out of the race. Not really. That's what I think driver Romain Grosjean thought happened when he crashed out of the 2018 Azerbaijan Grand Prix on lap 43 out of 51. Romain decided to plant into the wall shortly after coming onto the team radio explaining that Ericsson hit him from behind. The only problem was that Ericsson was 8 places behind him, never even coming close to him. Oh yeah, forgot to mention something kind of important. He crashed during a safety car. You know, the one time when everyone needs to drive slow because there was an accident on the track? And he crashed when he was supposed to drive slow? Also, the commentator's reaction is kind of funny.
Oh, he's just dropped it himself.
Multi 21. In Formula 1, there are 10 teams with 2 cars each. That means that 2 drivers of each team are competing as a team but also with each other. This unique dynamic can result in interesting moments when the teams and the drivers' interests don't align. Recently, we saw exactly that when Lando Norris refused for a few laps to give back the lead of the race to his teammate at the Hungarian Grand Prix, even after receiving team orders. He gave the position back in the end, but what happens when you refuse team orders for real? At the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix that happened, when the 2 Red Bull cars were running comfortably 1 and 2, and then the driver in the second position, Sebastian Vettel, disregarded team orders and attacked his teammate for the lead. Vettel was told by his race engineer multimap 2-1. This was the team's signal to hold position, but with 13 laps to go, Vettel went past his teammate, securing the victory. Even before the events of Sepang 13, Vettel and Webber had endured a fractious relationship as teammates at Red Bull. Vettel was the first star to emerge from Red Bull's in-house driver academy and had already led the team to 3 consecutive titles from 2010 to 2012. Webber, meanwhile, was an external recruit and lost his chance to score a maiden world championship in 2010, and he threw away a massive points led by crashing out from the Korean Grand Prix. Vettel received massive backlash for his tactics, although some argued that athletes should be ruthless in professional sports. In the community, Multi 21 is still used as a joke whenever team orders come into play. Alright, let's get into Tier 2. Fernando is faster than you. In 2002, the FIA decided to ban team orders in an effort to force teammates' drivers to fight on track. The only problem was that it didn't work. Everyone except the FIA apparently knew what would happen. Teams will just make up code words to signal to the drivers to switch positions or hold. The most obvious of these moments took place at the 2010 German Grand Prix when Ferrari driver Felipe Massa received a suspicious message from his team. The now infamous "Fernando is faster than you." Fernando Alonso being his teammate at Ferrari, what could this clearly not suspicious and out of place message mean? Especially after it was followed by, "Can you confirm you understood this message?" Everyone knew what it meant. Felipe knew what it meant, the commentators knew what it meant, and fans knew what it meant. So half a lap later, Fernando passed Felipe with little resistance. This became quite a big scandal, not for Ferrari or its drivers, but for the FIA and the unenforceable rule that banned team orders. The moment between the 2 Ferrari drivers highlighted how hard it is to enforce the rule when teams can just make up code words and have plausible deniability. Nico Hulkenberg, 0 podiums. Winning in F1 requires a couple of things to align, especially having a good driver and a good car, but what happens when you have a good driver that had a bad car his entire career? Nico Hulkenberg holds the record for most races without a podium finish, with an astonishing 217 starts with 0 top 3 finishes. Quite impressive when you consider Lance Stroll got a podium. Starting his career at Williams, there was quite a bit of hype for the German driver coming into the 2010 season. Yes, the team was a backmarker at the time, but people expected him to jump to a better team in the following seasons. What followed was bad team after bad team, with him joining Force India and then to Sauber and then back to Force India. Things looked brighter in 2017 with him joining Renault, but due to bad luck and the terrible reliability of the Renault engine, he never succeeded in getting that elusive podium. With no team in 2021 and 2022, things started to look like this was it for the Hulk. But then in 2023, he made a comeback with Haas, displaying some great performances in 2023 and 2024, but again, the car left a lot to desire. Haas is last year's Ferrari. Haas, the team that is doomed to forever be at the back of the grid, the team whose owner refuses to spend more than the bare minimum because he sees F1 not as a sporting endeavor, but as a marketing opportunity for his shitty factory tools. Does it sound like I don't like Haas? Well, yes, I don't like them, because the only American team in F1 is stuck at the back because it refuses to spend a dime, while the motorsporting legends like Andretti are not allowed in the sport for dubious reasons. Anyway, back to the task at hand. In F1, every team designs its own car, but some parts can be sold and exchanged to other teams. These partnerships between teams vary from case to case, but none of them is more close than Ferrari and Haas. Since they joined in 2017, Haas has used many Ferrari parts including the engine. They have an office close to the Ferrari HQ in Maranello, Italy. The American team also had its technical director, Samor Resta, coming from Ferrari. The saying, Haas is last year's Ferrari, is a joke at teams' over-reliance on Ferrari. Whenever Ferrari has a good year, so does Haas, which only fuels the critics, as some see the partnership as going against the spirit of the sport. Tracing point. Haas and Ferrari have a close technical relationship, but there's a difference between sharing parts while still following the rules and just copying another team's car. At the beginning of the 2020 season, Racing Point showed up to the preseason testing with a car looking suspiciously close to the 2019 Mercedes. People immediately started asking questions and the Tracing Point nickname was born. To note is that Mercedes F1 owner and team principal Toto Wolff is a shareholder of the team then named Racing Point and a good friend with its owner Lawrence Stroll. The FIA immediately launched an investigation, but this was resolved behind closed doors, so we don't know how much the two teams shared information. The car performed quite well if you compare it to the team's previous cars, even getting a win, with Sergio Perez displaying an insane performance at the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix. Crashgate, the biggest and most infamous scandal in F1 history. Teams and drivers have tried to cheat since the beginning of the sport, but rarely can an attempt to abuse the system have involved such serious stakes, namely the personal safety of a driver. Given that and the high-profile nature of those involved, it is unsurprising that when Crashgate, as it quickly became known, broke it, did considerable damage to the image of Formula One in a year, and it was already on the back foot. The basics of what happened are quite simple. At the Singapore Grand Prix in September 2008, Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed into the wall at the 17th turn on the 14th lap of the race. The location of the accident meant that the safety car had to be deployed while the debris was being cleared, which helped Piquet's teammate Fernando Alonso to win. Piquet described the crash as a simple mistake and at that moment, for all intents and purposes, was that. On August 3rd, shortly after the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix, Piquet was released by Renault. Piquet was livid and within days claimed he had crashed on orders. After weeks of speculation and rumors, on September 4th, Renault was charged with conspiracy. Renault was disqualified from F1, suspended for 2 years. Briatore, team principal, was suspended from all Formula One events and FIA-sanctioned events indefinitely, whilst Pat Simons, the head engineer, received a 5-year ban. Both bans were overturned by the French court in January 2010, although they both agreed to not work in Formula One or FIA-sanctioned events as part of their later settlement reached within the governing body. Alright, now on to Tier 3, Benetton Traction Control. Cheating has been into F1 since the early days of the sport. Every few years there is always another scandal popping out of nowhere. Case in point, in 1994, Benetton was caught cheating after the FIA took a closer look at their car following the famous images of the car catching fire in the pit lane. Following an investigation from the FIA, it was found out that the fuel spillage which prompted the fire caused by a valve in the refueling system was missing. The FIA and Intertechnique, the company who manufactured the refueling equipment for all the teams, believed a, quote, foreign body reached the valve because of a filter. This filter was designed to eliminate the risk of spillage and has been deliberately removed according to the company in their findings. It later transpired that Benetton removed the filter to increase the fuel flow rate by 12.5%, thus giving them a 1-second advantage during their pit stops. No further action was taken after it was found Benetton removed the filter without the intention of cheating, but a much bigger accusation was gathering in the background. Allegations of Benetton using traction control first emerged at the Brazilian Grand Prix. The FIA asked Benetton, Ferrari, and McLaren to provide copies of their engine management system source code to see if a traction control system was being stored. Both McLaren and Benetton missed the deadline and were fined $100,000. Analysis was also made on the black boxes and found that a launch control system was in the software, after it included a hidden trigger system. The investigation showed that it could be triggered by a PC and that it was an option that was not visible, known as option 13. In the aftermath of the FIA admitted that it had trouble scrutinizing driver aids on the cars, with a decision later being made to permit traction control, launch control, and automatic transmissions in 2001. Spygate. We talked about a cheating scandal in the last entry, so let's talk about another one. I believe everyone is cheating in this sport. So the 2007 espionage crisis that engulfed Formula One's two biggest teams was properly dubbed Spygate, with McLaren being hit with the largest fine in sporting history at $100 million USD, which is a ridiculous amount of money, and losing its Constructors' Championship after being caught with 800 pages of confidential Ferrari technical information. The two key, crucial players in Spygate were Nigel Stefani of Ferrari and his old friend Mike Coughlin, chief designer of McLaren. A disgruntled Stefani felt he had been overlooked for promotion, and so he stole nearly 800 pages of confidential technical information about the 2007 Ferrari and handed them over to Coughlin. As the two tried to get jobs with other teams, but what caught Stefani and Coughlin out was the fact that Coughlin's wife, Trudy, tried to make photocopies of the documents at a shop in Woking. The only trouble was that the owner was a Ferrari fan who immediately emailed Scuderia with his suspicions. As well as legal proceedings in both Italy and the UK, the FIA opened an investigation but cleared McLaren on the basis that Coughlin had acted alone and the Ferrari information was not shared with other McLaren staff. Ferrari cheat engine. Oh look, another cheating scandal. And there will be a few more. There were many rumors and murmurs which claimed that Ferrari had been cheating with its 2019 engine, and when the team was unstoppable on tracks that were power hungry in 2019, winning 3 races that year. A sudden technical regulation change triggered by an unexpected investigation by the FIA caused a massive loss in power, which was one of the main reasons why Ferrari and its customer teams have such a massive drop off in performance in 2020. Ferrari at the start of the 2020 season announced a, quote, private agreement with Formula One, but no one technically accused Ferrari of cheating. The full results of that private agreement were never made available to the public, but it was clear that whatever sanctions the FIA did put in place had a very negative impact on Ferrari's power. In 2020, they slumped to their worst Constructors' Championship result in 4 decades with a P6 finish. Hamilton 2007 crane assistance. In 2007, during the European Grand Prix, Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, Vincenzo Luisi, Adrian Sutil, and Scott Speed all found themselves in the gravel on the outside of a turn after a downpour at the start of last weekend's race. Button, Rosberg, Luisi, Sutil, and Speed all retired. Hamilton waited in the car with his engine turned on, got dragged out by a crane, restarted, and even got back on the lap he lost. This was weird. The general rule since forever has been that if you're stuck and you can't get yourself out, you're out of the race. There have been past instances of drivers controversially rejoining the races after getting outside help, but Hamilton was moved by a crane, which as far as I'm aware is unprecedented. So was the restart legal? We still don't really know, but we do know that the FIA clarified the rules to avoid these kinds of situations. Hamilton tweeting data. In 2012, people didn't really know what Twitter was or social media in general. One of these people was Lewis Hamilton, the now 7-time world champion. He made the mistake to tweet his telemetry data graph of his car. Soon the post was deleted, but it was way too late. It is unknown if it was by mistake or intentional, but it was a fact that now everyone had access to some pretty sensitive data. Former McLaren driver Alex Wurz, then working with rivals Williams, rubbed salt into Hamilton's wounds by tweeting, "Could you also tweet the race strategy and setup sheet? Thanks, mate." Tier 4, Ligate. Rejoice, this time is not a cheating scandal. It's more of a lying to a referee kind of scandal, and a dumb one at that. After a crash between Sebastian Vettel and Robert Kubica, the safety car came onto the track, with Trulli running third and Hamilton fourth. Under safety car, everyone is supposed to line up one after another and drive slower. At one point, Trulli went off the track and Hamilton was forced to pass him, which under safety car is not allowed. McLaren summoned the brand new world champion via radio to let the Toyota car back past, which Hamilton did on the exit on turn 4, but while the safety car is still on track, technically meaning that Trulli had overtaken Hamilton, and was hit with a 25-second time penalty. Hamilton and his team told the stewards that they never told the driver to let Trulli pass. Next time out in Malaysia, an interview was discovered that seemingly contradicted that, with the radio communications proving Hamilton had lied to the stewards, with the Briton being clearly told to let Trulli back through. Hamilton was promptly disqualified from the Australian Grand Prix, and the team hit with a suspended ban from the FIA, providing no similar incidents happened again. 2003 tire changes. In 2002, Michael Schumacher matched Juan Manuel Fangio by securing his 5th driver's title and his 3rd consecutive one, having finished on the podium in every race that season. Ferrari also claimed their 4th consecutive constructors title, nearly doubling the points of runners-up Williams. This level of dominance was unprecedented, leading to a season full of unremarkable races. As a result, rule changes were introduced to make the competition closer, including one-lap qualifying and awarding points to the top 8 finishers instead of just the top 6. Schumacher had a challenging start to the 2003 season, but then secured 3 consecutive pole positions and wins. However, Ferrari's Bridgestone tires struggled as a Europe-wide heatwave set in. Schumacher managed to win only one of the next 7 races, while 5 different drivers, 4 of whom used Michelin tires, claimed victories. After the Hungarian Grand Prix, Schumacher, Juan Pablo Montoya, and Kim Räikkönen were separated by just 2 points. At this critical juncture, Ferrari and Bridgestone raised concerns that Michelin's tires were deforming beyond the maximum allowed tread width during races. As a result, Michelin was required to redesign narrow tires, which diminished the competitiveness of Williams and McLaren. Schumacher capitalized on this, winning the next 2 races, while Räikkönen finished 4th and 2nd, and Montoya 2nd and 6th. In the final round in Japan, Schumacher qualified 14th and found his way to 8th. Montoya was now out of the title race. And although Räikkönen qualified 7th and finished 2nd between Schumacher's teammate Rubens Barrichello, Schumacher clinched his record-breaking 6th driver's title by 2 points. Red Bull's second seat is cursed. The notion that Red Bull's second seat is cursed has become a widely discussed topic in the world of Formula 1. This idea stems from the challenges and difficulties faced by drivers who have occupied the second seat at Red Bull Racing, especially in recent years alongside the team's star driver, Max Verstappen. Since Daniel Ricciardo left the team at the end of the 2018 season, feeling that Red Bull was favoring Max, the second Red Bull seat had become a catalyst of misfortune. Gasly was promoted at the start of 2019, only to be demoted to the second team after 12 races. Alex Albon comes in and it's again dropped at the end of the 2020 due to some questionable performances. Since then, the spot has become occupied by Mexican driver Sergio Perez, who in the last 2 seasons has some interesting races. The man dropping like a stone every time F1 gets to the European races. All 3 drivers have come out and said that the car is difficult to drive. Combine this with the pressure to drive on a top team like Red Bull, and everyone on them cracked under pressure. Being compared to the racing machine that is Max Verstappen doesn't help either. The intense scrutiny from the media and fans adds another layer of pressure on the second driver. Formula 1 is a sport that thrives on drama and rivalries, and the media often amplifies any struggles faced by the second driver. Every mistake is highlighted, every poor performance analyzed, and creating a hostile environment that can erode a driver's confidence. By the time of recording this, Perez is still in the team, but his future is looking shaky, especially with young drivers like Liam Lawson and Ayumi Iwasa waiting for the call-up to the main team. F2 is an equal. Formula 2 is the last step on the road to Formula 1. Here, young and upcoming drivers compete in a spec series to impress the F1 scouts that are watching constantly. A spec series means that all cars are equal. Same engine, same body, gearbox, everything. But the thing is, even with the same car, not all teams are the same. The difference comes from the engineers, the staff. Good engineers will know how to squeeze that extra performance from the car, how to set up the car optimally for that specific race. The bigger teams like Prima and Art have better equipment and facilities. So when people say that F2 isn't equal, they're right. But it is good to remember that there is not such a difference like in Formula 1. It is still the same car. Even though drivers for the big teams have an advantage, you will see drivers from the smaller teams have good performances from time to time. And a good rule to follow when evaluating a driver is to always compare him with his teammates first. Red Bull rigged Max to win Spain 2016. In 2016, after Danny Kvyat collided with Sebastian Vettel twice in two corners at Sochi in 2016, inadvertently causing Vettel to crash into teammate Daniel Ricciardo, Helmut Marko decided to demote Kvyat back to Toro Rosso and promote Max Verstappen to Red Bull ahead of schedule. Following Verstappen's impressive debut in 2015, in the next race in Barcelona, Verstappen qualified fourth behind new teammate Ricciardo, with the two Mercedes cars occupying the front row. Hamilton and Rosberg collided at the start, which allowed Ricciardo to take the lead with Verstappen in second, followed by Carlos Sainz, who had overtaken the Ferraris. Once the safety car period ended, Ricciardo and Verstappen extended the lead over Sainz, but this lead diminished as Vettel and Raikkonen advanced. Verstappen stuck to a two-stop strategy, while Ricciardo was put on a three-stop, anticipating Ferrari's strong long-run pace. Ferrari mirrored this with Raikkonen on a two-stop and Vettel on a three-stop. To dwell too much on the details, the two-stop strategy was faster, and combined with Ricciardo getting a puncture on the penultimate lap, led him to finish fourth, with the newly promoted Max Verstappen winning his first race and becoming the youngest driver to win a Formula 1 race. This outcome, along with the fact that Ricciardo had replaced Vettel at Red Bull only to be later overshadowed by Verstappen, fueled conspiracy theories suggesting the team deliberately disadvantaged Ricciardo to create a fairy tale debut win for Verstappen. Very interesting. Despite these speculations, Verstappen and Ricciardo continued as teammates for 3 more seasons, facing significant reliability issues, especially in 2017, which mostly affected Verstappen. In 2018, although Ricciardo won in Monaco, he failed to reach the podium again, while Verstappen had 10 podiums and 2 victories. Ricciardo suffered 6 mechanical retirements and, during the summer break, surprised the F1 world by leaving Red Bull to sign with Renault for 2019. Toro Rosso driver Pierre Gasly was then promoted early to take Ricciardo's seat. Alright, now into Tier 5, and a quick subscriber stop before we get into the Tier 5 because, you're watching halfway through the video already and you seem to enjoy it, I hope. So let me know what you think of the video so far. Leave a comment down below and subscribe. I appreciate it. Let's get into BAR second fuel tank. Well, another cheating scandal. In 2005, BAR Honda, the team that would later become Mercedes, devised a clever trick by secretly installing a second fuel tank in their car, holding about 10 liters of extra fuel. At first glance, this might seem counterproductive as it would add weight to the car, but this was actually a clever F1 cheat. The hidden fuel ensued the car met the minimum weight requirements when weighed with the normal fuel tank empty. During the race, the team would use the fuel from the hidden tank, allowing the car to effectively run underweight and gain a speed advantage. The extra tank was discovered after the San Marino Grand Prix when the hidden fuel was drained and the car re-weighed. It failed to meet the minimum 600 kilograms weight requirement. Rumor has it that the FIA actually considered banning Honda for the entire 2005 season, but because they couldn't definitively prove the tank had been used to run the car underweight, the team instead banned for 2 races. The tank was subsequently removed, and ballast was added to bring the car up to the required weight. Magnussen was a 2014 title contender. This is more of a joke these days. It's kind of bullying, to be honest. Magnussen finished second in his very first F1 race at the 2014 Australian Grand Prix after being handed a McLaren drive following his title victory in Formula Renault 3.5 Series the previous year. Magnussen revealed that he had high expectations about what he would achieve in F1 after his debut podium, believing he might even battle for the World Championship in his rookie season. Magnussen went on to finish the season 11th in the standings, 329 points behind world champion Lewis Hamilton as McLaren scraped past Force India to finish 5th in the Constructors' Championship. He ended the season uncertain if he would continue racing for McLaren the following year, as the team weighed up whether to drop him or Jenson Button to make room for the incoming Fernando Alonso. Magnussen will never achieve another podium in his long 10-year career. Pretty sad. Mercedes gave Lotus party mode at Spa 2015. From 2014 to 2019, Mercedes was unbeatable, mostly due to their incredibly powerful and reliable engine. They also made great use of engine modes, which allowed the engine to work at different power levels and characteristics. Matthew Carter, who was the CEO of Lotus during its final season of F1 in 2015, described how Mercedes permitted his team to use the engine setting to beat Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari during the 2015 Belgian Grand Prix. Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg led the race ahead of Vettel, who was trying to complete the race on a single pit stop. In the closing stages of the race, he was being caught by Grosjean's Lotus Mercedes. The car's sudden gain in performance can be seen in the lap times from the race. Between laps 25 and 30, Grosjean's average time was 1:55.6. Over the next 8 laps, it fell to 1:54.8, a gain of 0.8 of a second. He set his fastest lap on the race on lap 37, which brought him within striking distance of Ferrari. On lap 39, a radio message to Grosjean was broadcasted in which he was told, "Strat 7, have a go at Vettel." A lap later, he was half a second behind the Ferrari. Vettel was on the same compound of tires as Grosjean, but had been running them for 7 laps longer. On lap 42, Vettel's right rear tire failed, allowing Grosjean through to take Lotus's only podium finish of the season. 2012 Williams was a championship-capable car. In 2012, Williams F1 finished 8th out of 12 in the Constructors' Championship, with their drivers Pastor Maldonado and Bruno Senna finishing 15th and 16th respectively. Today, some fans and analysts feel that the team could have had better results if they had better drivers during that season. Williams even won a race that season, with Maldonado taking first at 2012 Spanish Grand Prix, a result so good they actually celebrated until the garage caught fire after the race. To be fair, neither Maldonado nor Bruno Senna were exceptional drivers, both being ridiculed by fans during their careers. All the data and preseason testing pointed to the car having good performance, but the quality of the drivers certainly hindered the team. And they knew this, with Bruno Senna being replaced at the end of the year with Pastor Maldonado retiring in 2013, but it was a bit too late, as in 2014 with the new regulations, the team lost a lot of car performance. Mercedes 2019 winter testing. It's always good to remember to not put too much trust into preseason testing. Case in point, the 2019 season. In preseason testing, Ferrari looked better than the Mercedes and with quite a margin. The hype lasted only until the first race at the Australian Grand Prix, where Mercedes absolutely destroyed the competition, and everyone was bracing for another dominant Mercedes season. There are many myths and half-truths surrounding exactly what happened to create that set of circumstances. It certainly wasn't some elaborate game of sandbagging, but rather a reflection of the way Mercedes optimized its development time and testing strategy, just as it had done for the more comprehensive high downforce regulations changes 2 years earlier. Mercedes opted to run in the first test in Barcelona with a version of the car that was signed off very early in November 2018. The aero package could then be manufactured and used for the first 4-day test in Barcelona, while they built the real car for the second preseason test. While Ferrari and Vettel still set the fastest lap time in testing, Lewis Hamilton's best mark was only 3 thousandths of a second slower. But there was a hint of a bigger advantage for Ferrari given Vettel gave away several tenths in the final sector of his best lap. Mercedes was clearly far closer with its real deal car, but still Ferrari was justifiably reckoned to have the edge. It was therefore a surprise to everyone when Lewis Hamilton claimed pole position in Melbourne, 0.7 of a second faster than the lead Ferrari of Vettel. This prefaced a 1-2 finish in the first of 8 consecutive victories. Alright, let's get into Tier 6. Barrichello's Star of David. Not much to talk about here. Rubens Barrichello had a Star of David on his helmet. He was born in Brazil and was all by accounts Catholic, so why the Star of David? I couldn't find anything concrete, but one theory is that his grandfather was Jewish, fleeing Italy during World War II. Will Smith won the 2018 Abu Dhabi GP. This one is kind of a cute joke. Before the 2018 Abu Dhabi GP, Lewis posted a video on his Instagram on how he was kidnapped by Will Smith, the latter being a guest of the team for that race. The video shows Will tying Lewis to a chair and stealing his racing gear to compete in his stead, in the end getting caught by the team, hence the inside joke, Will Smith won the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz doesn't exist. I have no idea what this means. We are doing this iceberg based on the chart made by user ComfreyRemy on the r/Formula Dank subreddit on Reddit. All I could gather is that this is one of those jokes like New Zealand doesn't exist or that Wyoming is a fake place. I actually kind of believe that last one, you know? Ralph was the fastest Schumacher. This is just wrong. Ralf Schumacher is the younger brother of 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher. In his career, he had 6 wins and 27 podiums, compared to Michael's 91 wins and 155 podiums, and again, 7 championships. This is just one of those hot takes your drunk uncle tells you at the Thanksgiving dinner. Russell never had a puncture. Now this is a hot conspiracy. Before the 2020 Sakir GP, Lewis Hamilton was sidelined due to COVID. In his place, Mercedes brought George Russell from Williams as a replacement for that race. Despite only just jumping in the car, he qualified second behind template Valtteri Bottas. At the start of the race, Russell took the lead in turn 1, storming through the next few corners before Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc collided in turn 4, bringing the safety car out. After the race resumed, George built a sizable lead over the other drivers. Later, on lap 61, Jack Aitken, who took Russell's drive at Williams for the race, crashed, breaking his front wing. With the safety car out again, Mercedes decided to do one of their famous double stacks, but due to mixed communication, Russell was sent out on Valtteri's tires, with the latter sitting in the pit box for 30 seconds before going back out without changing tires. Russell pitted again on the next lap, but now being 5th with Bottas 4th. Russell aggressively passed his teammate and continued to chase the cars in front with his new set of tires. Before taking the lead from Sergio Perez, he was told he had a puncture on the rear left tire, one that he did not notice, and was not visible on cameras. Russell pitted again, dropping to 14th, after climbing to 9th by the end of the race and securing the fastest lap. Now, the conspiracy. At the time, Russell was seen as a future world champion in the making, and there were significant calls from the fans to give him the second Mercedes seat beside Lewis Hamilton, as everyone wanted to see him in a competitive car. In this one drive, he surprised everyone, being just inches away from victory. Fans saw this as proof that he deserved the Mercedes seat. The conspiracy states that if he had won, he would have humiliated Bottas and even damaged Hamilton's reputation, replicating one of his performances in a car he had never driven before. Another proof of this conspiracy is that at the time, Mercedes were extremely consistent with pit stops and race strategy. Putting the wrong tires on the wrong car was something they had never done before. But even with the bad mess up, Russell was still poised to win the race. Then suddenly having a puncture no one saw beside the team. Conspiracy theorists see this as a clear sabotage from the team so that Russell not threaten the position of the second Mercedes drivers. Fans were excited to see him having another go in Abu Dhabi, but Hamilton returned, even though he was visibly unwell and still sick. At this point, Hamilton already secured the championship, so it was a bit weird to see him pushing so hard for the return. At Abu Dhabi, Russell was relegated back to Williams and Hamilton scraped a 3rd place behind Bottas and Max Verstappen. Mika Salo leaking steward penalties. Mika Salo is a Finnish former professional racing driver who competed in Formula 1 between 1994 and 2002, and like many other ex-racing drivers, became an F1 steward and was called up for the 2020 Russian GP. Before the beginning of the race, pole sitter Lewis Hamilton performed 2 practice starts outside of the designed pit line areas. Soon after, it was announced by the stewards that he was under investigation for this. As the message appeared on screen, the Finnish commentary team said that they expect Lewis to get 2.5-second penalties for the infraction. And 10 minutes later, they were right, as Hamilton was penalized with 2.5-second penalties. This all led to speculation that Salo leaked the steward decision to the Finnish broadcast. The matter was not helped by the broadcast panning to the steward room, showing Salo with his mobile phone on the table. In the end, everyone denied the allegations. Alright, let's get into Tier 7. Alonso winter testing 2015 crash. During the 3rd day of preseason testing in Barcelona in 2015, Fernando Alonso, who had rejoined McLaren after a contentious departure over 7 years earlier, crashed into the inside wall at turn 3, rendering him unconscious. He was airlifted to the hospital, spent 2 nights in intensive care, and ultimately missed the season opener in Australia, where he was replaced by Kevin Magnussen. The crash was never shown in any broadcast, and McLaren remained vague about the cause of what appeared to be a serious accident. This secrecy fueled speculation that Alonso might have blacked out due to an epileptic fit or being electrocuted by the car's ERS. McLaren later stated that there was no mechanical failure, attributing the crash to unusually gusty winds. However, photographs of the car revealed tire marks inconsistent with a typical spin, and amateur footage showed the car grinding to a halt after the impact. When Alonso finally spoke about the incident a month later at a press conference in Sepang, he contradicted McLaren's explanation, stating that there was no wind and that the accident was caused by a mechanical failure, specifically claiming that the steering had locked. Sebastian Vettel, who had been driving behind Alonso at the time, noted that the crash seemed unusual, as Alonso was moving relatively slowly before suddenly veering sharply to the right. After the crash, McLaren initially reported that Alonso was uninjured. However, Eric Boullier and Ron Dennis later stated that he had suffered a concussion, sparking rumors of severe memory loss, with some reports suggesting that Alonso awoke in the hospital speaking Italian, thinking he still drove for Ferrari, or even believing he was 13 years old, saying, "I'm Fernando, I race karts, and I want to be a Formula 1 driver." The crash was captured on both track CCTV and the onboard cameras of Alonso and Vettel, but the footage was seized by the FIA for their investigation and has never been released and probably never will be. Roy Nissany. I don't really get why this is here. He did make a name for himself as being a bad driver and also a pay driver. Roy Nissany, an Israeli racing driver, his father, Kanak, also a retired racing driver, began his racing career at the age of 38. In 2005, Kanak became a test driver for Minardi. During the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, he drove the car on his 42nd birthday. Initially, he complained that the slowest car on the grid had too much grip. However, he ended up setting a time 6 seconds slower than his teammate Christian Albers and spun off into the gravel. Unfortunately, he couldn't remove the steering wheel, so he had to be carried away in the car by the recovery crane. In contrast, Roy Nissany started racing at the more typical age of 6. He progressed to the single-seaters at 16 and won only one race over the next 4 years. Later, he moved up to Formula 2 and joined the Williams Driver Academy after receiving sponsorship from Canadian-Israeli billionaire Samuel Adams. In his 4 years in Formula 2, Roy had scored about 30 points and achieved one podium finish. Additionally, he made 6 FP1 outings for Williams in 2020 and 2021, participating in preseason testing in 2021. Notably, he has more mileage in Formula 1 cars than most other Formula 2 drivers because in F1, money talks. Monkeys can drive Formula 1 cars. In the early 2000s, several electronic driver aids that had been banned a decade later were reintroduced, including traction control, launch control, and fully automatic transmissions. This led to unprecedented dominance by Michael Schumacher and Ferrari, prompting Niki Lauda and Nigel Mansell to remark that even monkeys could drive these cars. Many drivers agreed that the cars had become too easy to handle, leading to the ban of launch control after only a few years and a return to the sequential gearboxes. Traction control was also banned a few years later. Sophia Flores, sex, breakfast of champions. James Hunt, a notorious womanizer and part-time Formula 1 driver, famously had a badge stitched onto his overalls that read, "Sex, Breakfast of Champions." In 2018, European Formula 3 driver Sophia Flores posted a photo on Instagram wearing a jacket with the same badge stitched onto it. She also had a sticker of the badge on her car while racing in ADAC Formula 4, and Flores was 15 years old at the time. Every driver is a pay driver. To a degree, yeah. Formula 1 has become increasingly expensive over time, making it almost impossible to secure a seat without significant financial backing. Lando Norris, whose father has a net worth of $200 million, is never labeled a pay driver due to his successful junior career, despite always having access to top-tier equipment and support. In contrast, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton come from more modest, lower middle-class backgrounds. They had to self-fund their early racing years when karting was more affordable until they were eventually picked up by the driver academies. This support set them on a path to success, and neither has ever needed personal sponsors to advance their careers. Senna was a nonce. Oh boy, here come the Brazilian fanboys. In 1985, when Ayrton Senna was 25 years old, he began dating a girl named Adrienne Yaman, who was 15 at the time. While the age of consent in Brazil is 14, making the relationship legal, it is still unsettling. Losing hair equals losing speed. Many were surprised when photos leaked in early 2021 showing Sebastian Vettel during a seat fitting with Aston Martin, revealing the extent of his hair loss, which had been hidden under his Ferrari cap in recent years. His largely unsuccessful stint with Ferrari, following 4 consecutive titles with Red Bull, seemed to have aged him significantly. During his time with McLaren, Lewis Hamilton sported a buzz cut, but as he faced post-championship struggles, his hair was noticeably thinning and receding. Now, as a 7-time champion with Mercedes, Hamilton has a full head of hair styled into distinct cornrows and braids. Since leaving Ferrari, Vettel's hair has also made a noticeable comeback. Though despite his wealth and access to high-quality hair transplants and haircuts, his hair still doesn't look great. Massa was faster. This refers back to the point in Tier 2, he was not faster. Finnish racing genes. Finland has a population of 5.5 million people. Knowing this, the fact that there have been 9 Finnish Formula 1 drivers, from which 3 are world champions, is astounding. And not just Formula 1, there have been a lot of Finns in other motorsports as well, including rallying and endurance racing. Due to the harsh weather conditions and unfriendly terrain, the Finns have developed a unique culture around driving, including motorsports. Outside the major cities, Finland is characterized by gravel roads that are typically close to where people live. Even the asphalt roads are often snow-covered during the winter months. This exposure to challenging driving conditions from an early age helps Finns develop an understanding of how to handle various terrains, which partly explains their exceptional performance in the World Rally Championship, where adaptability to different surfaces is crucial. The remote and quiet nature of many Finnish roads also provides opportunities for young people to get behind the wheel at an early age. Many famous Finnish race drivers often recount starting their driving experience before they were even 10 years old. By practicing on the quiet fields and lanes near their homes, Finns gain familiarity with how cars behave on different terrains long before reaching adulthood. Alright, let's get into Tier 8. Alonso died in a plane crash. In January 2009, Fernando Alonso and his wife narrowly escaped injury in an airplane accident while attempting to return from holiday in Kenya on their private jet. According to the Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera, Alonso and his wife, singer Raquel del Rosario, were departing from Malandi Airport to return to Spain after spending time at the luxury Lion in the Sun Resort, owned by Renault F1 managing director Flavio Briatore. Shortly after takeoff on Sunday evening, the plane's right wing struck a building, causing the pilot to momentarily lose control. While the pilot was treated for shock, all passengers on board, including Raquel's sister and her partner, were unharmed and safely exited the aircraft. He did, in fact, not die in the accident, but I do believe he has been replaced by a robot because the man is almost 50 and is still driving an F1. Senna was sniped. This is one of the wildest and stupidest conspiracy theories I've ever heard. And it goes like this. In the infamous 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, Senna tragically passed away to an accident into an unprotected concrete barrier. Telemetry data indicates that Senna braked hard, but the car still collided with the wall at 131 miles an hour. The impact tore off the front right wheel and nose cone before the car came to a stop. After the collision, Senna remained motionless in the cockpit. Onboard footage captured a slight movement of his head to the left about 10 seconds later, but it soon returned to its original position. Senna sustained 3 major injuries in the crash. The first was caused by the rebounded wheel striking his helmet, forcing his head back against the headrest. Additionally, a loose piece of suspension pierced his helmet, and part of the car's upright assembly went through his helmet visor. Any one of these injuries alone would likely have been fatal. The seriousness of the crash became apparent when Senna lay motionless. There was a brief moment of hope when his head seemed to move, but it quickly faded when his head returned to its resting position. Fire marshals reached Senna's car seconds after the accident, but they were not allowed to touch him until medical personnel arrived. Within minutes, Senna was extracted from the car and received medical attention. The visible head injuries indicated severe trauma, but the full extent of the damage was not immediately known. The conspiracy says that it was not in fact an accident and that he was shot by a sniper. The theory that Ayrton Senna was sniped stems from the fact that the puncture holes in his helmet were roughly the size of a bullet. Additionally, some claim that in the crash footage, his head appears to slump to the side before the car impacts the wall, and that the engine noise sounds more like the car was simply slowing down rather than actually braking. Missing evidence and endless years of investigation delay itself strongly suggest a cover-up. Mysteriously, after 90 seconds, the video cuts out the very second before wall contact. It would have disproved the preconceived suspension penetration myth. Also, Williams' staff were horrified to find that the telemetry black box had several data channels physically cut, but were afraid to ever speak about it. And the car was kept for a ridiculous 10 years by Italian authorities before giving it back to Williams to examine. Italy's notorious corruption provided the perfect environment for a cover-up, so who knows? Ericsson hit Grosjean. While using his mind powers, maybe. Leclerc sacrifices. This is a disgusting conspiracy theory that states every time Charles has a major achievement, someone close to him dies, and frankly, this is so absurd and weird, I don't even want to go into detail. WEC is better. WEC is the World Endurance Championship, which is vastly different from Formula 1, so comparing the two really isn't warranted. Also, the WEC has been dominated by either Toyota or Porsche for the last couple of years. F3 isn't equal. Is the same idea as F2 isn't equal from before, so you can watch that again and replace F2 with F3. Mick is Ralph's son. Mick Schumacher is the son of the 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher and the nephew of Ralf Schumacher. I can find no info on this alleged conspiracy, and also Ralf already has a son. And alright guys, that wraps up the Formula 1 Iceberg Explained. This was definitely the highest quality iceberg I've ever produced, and I think I will start doing that from now on. Icebergs will just be very high quality, good music, good editing, very intensive script, and just detailed everything. So let me know what videos you'd like to see in the future or topics. I'm thinking about UFC and a few other sports, maybe ones. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some thinking and maybe recover a few of previous ones I've done. But let me know what you thought about this video. What did you love? What did you hate? Please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. And anyways, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. It means the world. And all right, until next time, see ya.